My name's Mollie Gugler. I'm the college archivist, and I'm here today with Anne Bamrick. I'm very excited to be interviewing you, Anne. Like we were just talking about, you've had such a unique role in the history of the college, being a founding faculty member, dean of the Verde Valley Campus when it was so small, filling in as an interim president during a time nobody else on campus in the history of the college has held all of those different positions.
And a director of continuing education, too.
Oh, see,
under Don Heisero, yeah, for years.
Okay, so we've got a lot to talk
about.
Yeah,
we do.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background before you came to Yavapai College and how you ended up being here?
Well, it was really quite a surprise to everyone, because I taught at Mayer High School. My first teaching job was at Mayer High School, and I taught there for 3 years. I had been divorced and then went back to school, finished my education degree, and then had my first job in Mayer, because my dad had a cabin that he had in Mayer, and so he said, I was broke by then, and he said, live there rent-free. So I had my 2 sons, and so the boys and I moved to Mayer and had a delightful 3 years. It was a little one-house school, and I had the sophomore class, and it was 8 students, 7 boys and 1 girl, and that was the total sophomore class. Wow. There were very few in the high school, and so we were all in one high school, but I taught 7 preparations a day, because I had gone through my education and had emphasized vocational education. At that time it was called vocational education, and was certified because I had worked out in the business place as a secretary and many other office jobs, and so that qualified me to get into the voc ed, which meant money in those days for the school to get equipment. So we had new electric typewriters for the first time. That was in my 3rd year there. And business machines, we had better business machines in Mayer, and had the big calculators that cost a fortune than we did when I started at Yavapai College. So that was something else. But anyway, that's how I got into it. And when the college opened, I applied for a position with Dr. Hughes, who was the Dean of Vocational Education at that time. And he had taken my name through the administration and the search committee, and what happened was I had known Dr. Russo from the sports thing, the high school senior moments, the sports thing that controlled all of the sports people. And in Mayer High School I had a super track star, and Dr. Russo was on the committee, the state committee, and wouldn't let him run in the state thing. And so he and I met first at the state and had our few words there. So then when I applied for the position, why, he didn't think that I had had enough education, enough experience to come, to work at the college. And Dr. Hughes disagreed with him, and Dr. Barnes agreed with Dr. Hughes, and so anyway, I was hired for the business education teacher at the college. And so that's how I got here.
Great.
So,
well, I don't think I've ever met anybody who taught at Mayer High School. So
it was really something. I was the business teacher. I taught typing. I taught accounting. I taught business law. I taught general business. I had, what were the other ones that, I taught the full gamut there. And we had a new principal the year that I was hired, and he had never gone through North Central. And we were doing our preliminary, and he had no idea what to do. And I had come from Cortez High School, where I'd worked as a school secretary. And I had just been through North Central, and so he turned it all over to me, and so we got through that, and so he made me assistant principal in addition to my duties, and he didn't like discipline, so he gave the discipline cases to me. So it was busy because they would pull me out of class and bring a student down to be disciplined. So it was really quite comical, but really a lot of fun. I learned an awful lot from that. And at the end, I was the principal of the high school the third year. Wow. Because he had had a heart attack. And so I was teaching classes and trying to hold down the principal's job, and decided that I couldn't do it, so I had to hire a substitute for myself, which I did.
So from a very early time, you got used to juggling a lot of balls
a lot,
in the air.
Absolutely. That's kind of my forte.
Since you were founding faculty here, what was it like when you first started? What was the atmosphere? I'm trying to imagine.
Excitement.
Really? A
lot of excitement. I was naturally excited because it was a whole new thing. I was scared to death, but I thought, I can do it, and I've been out in the work world, which lots of teachers hadn't been when they started to try and teach something. Mm-hmm. So when I was hired on, we taught first of all, in the basement of the Methodist Church. That was our first classroom. And then I taught business. I taught typing, and I taught shorthand, and office management, and a lot of those types of classes, mm-hmm. because we were on the vocational area, and I had qualified, and so that brought us in a lot of money for to build up, and we had things ordered. But when we moved into the basement of the church, then we moved out to Whipple, mm-hmm. and we were in the basement of that one big building that was there, and the business room was downstairs in the basement, and we had one conduit that with one light bulb that came down in the basement, and I had 10 key adding machines, and I had one calculator, and those were the business. Oh, and I had a stencil, the old stencil mimeograph machine,
ditto machine.
And the ditto machine, and those were the business machines.
Did you have any typewriters?
Well, yeah, I had typewriters because we got that from the vocational ed monies, and we had nice typewriters. We brought in all of the desks when that building was filthy. We scrubbed, we cleaned it out. We had mops and big scrubbers that we scrubbed. We put all the furniture together and set the whole thing up. And all of us were working together. We had English. John Haynes was there, and Dave Hostetler, and all of our business teachers, and John Myers was the division chair for the business area there, and so I had all of the office ed area, and I taught everything in the office ed area. Wow. And so the business machine class was a challenge, but I had some of the fastest operators in the world because, man, they could do those machines. Uh-huh. That's all they could have to work on,
So
they had a good head of it. And we started our vocational clubs and VICA and some of the other clubs, the Distributive Ed Club, mm-hmm. and started the students with that, which I felt at that time was very important, to get students involved in the career that they wanted to be in.
That's right.
And to see that there's something more to it. You have to be willing to go with the professionalism and to keep yourself up to date when you're teaching. And I think if you don't, you're on the path that's going to boredom. So.
Did any of those clubs give the students an opportunity to go outside?
Oh yes, we had state competitions, all regional and state competitions that we took them to, and had placed many, had quite a good standing with with our groups, and they still do it today at the college here. So it was started out small, but kept right on going. And the computers then, computers were a new thing at that time. We had the big room that when we finally were moved in and had grown into our facilities, the original facilities, we had the computer room, and it was cold in there where, remember, you had to keep the computers in the cold area, and they were all in there, the big ones, and we did all of the payroll for lots of the school districts around, because we had the memory that other facilities didn't have. So we ran payroll, and that was an income for the college at that time.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
So,
how was it determined what classes you'd be teaching? Did you have any input in
what
was going to be taught?
As I said, John Myers was our first division chair. And John and I had known each other through high schools, through the vocational clubs and through the ABEA. And I was active in Arizona Business Education Association. That's where all high schools, business departments and administrators meet together. And we were both officers in that. And then I was an officer in WBEA and NBEA. And so I was, really quite active in all of that, along with all of the teaching. So we tried to simulate the kind of curriculum that would be most beneficial to our students. After all, that's who we were serving. We were here for the students. And yet, degrees, as far as at that particular time when we first started, we didn't have too many of the degree-oriented students, not in the business area. In the business area, we had more of the vocational students who wanted skills, wanted to build skills, wanted to get a background, to be able to go out and go to work. And we had the co-op, which they would work part-time for a business in the community and go to school, and they would get credit for their working there, and that was how they would apply their skills. And the business owner would work with the instructor and tell us what they really can't add. I mean, their math skills are terrible. You need to work on that. Or they're too shy. They won't. They have no presence of working with customers. They're they never smile. They don't welcome anyone into the business. All of those types of things were what we had with the co-op area, and so
sounds like really good.
And so those we would model our offerings to the classes that students would take. So many times we would offer classes that were on the degree-oriented program, and yet they wouldn't make because there weren't enough students to make in the beginning. And so you would, typing was always a full class. And then I can't remember what year it was that I decided that through the work that I'd done with ABEA that we should go in for an open lab and let students come and go as they wanted to, and to be able to earn their credits that way. And they could, if they could come in and they could do the course in 6 weeks, fine. They got the credit and was able to move on to the next one. And they had that, I think, until they changed, and I don't know if they still teach. I don't think they teach typing anymore, do they?
They call it keyboarding.
Yeah,
because it's all geared.
It's all right.
They still have what they call open entry, open exit
classes.
Yeah,
that's the ones that I had started and had designed that curriculum for the typing area. And
well, that's great. What was the makeup of the students? Were they mostly younger, middle-aged?
No, they were more middle-aged and a lot of seniors. You know, we had the elder hostel that started, that we had started here, and that was like non-credit courses, but there were so many retired people in the area, and that was a huge program at Yavapai College when it first started. And that was their really bread and butter for a couple of years, when they brought on the elder hostel and offered all of the senior courses. And then they got it for credit, and it was a very popular program. Our young students that came were students that couldn't afford to go to the universities, and were happy to have a community college. They really weren't quite sure what the concept of the community college was, and so we had a long, I think a rather long educational period and break-in period with the community to, you know, inform them what kinds of benefits they could do. And we would go out, we would register downtown on the mall, we would register. We would go to Camp Verde and register in Camp Verde. We'd register in Sedona. We registered, you know, all over the place. And that's how we did a lot of the early registrations, which was great. And you got to talk to the people. You found out what they wanted to take, what they were interested in. And then as we grew, and our programs and our academic programs were excellent, and they found out that they had you know, a great experience here at Yavapai, and it was much more economical than it was at the university. But a lot of them still wanted to get away from home, you know. So, and they didn't feel that living in the dorm in town was quite away from town. You know. But we had a lot of students then that started. And we had a tremendous baseball team. You know, right from the very beginning, we were all stars with Gary Ward, and who went to Oklahoma, and the baseball and there with him, and basketball with Dave Brown, and we had more in the soccer. The soccer had always, and it still remains a national icon in the field of soccer. So that was and Yavapai offered students, the young students, and it began to grow and grow. And then when I went to the Verde campus, well, it was like starting all over again, because there we had, you know, 4 little modular buildings, and that was it. And I went over there in '78, and we had no facilities any place except in Clarkdale there, in those four areas. But we taught at all the high schools. You know, we had Mingus High School, and we used their facilities at night and had a lot of night courses there. And we had courses at the schools in Sedona and at the Arts Center in Sedona. We had, and also when I took that, I was also assigned all of Coconino County in addition to the Verde campus. So it was, and at that time, the Verde campus and the Verde Valley wasn't really happy because Prescott had the main campus. And they fought very hard to have the main campus in the Verde Valley. So the community feelings between the two were a little strained, and it took a while to get those people on our side. And but with each accomplishment we made in the Verde, why, you'd think it was something astronomical. I mean, nowadays, when they have the bond issues and pass millions of dollars, we were so happy when we got our first permanent building over there, when we got our first new modular building and the library went in over there. And so the community then, they were proud of that, and we built it up. We made a big deal out of it. We welcomed them. We tried to serve the community more, get out, and I was active in all of the civic clubs in the Chamber of Commerce in Sedona and in Cottonwood, Camp Verde area.
Well, I think it's amazing that the Prescott campus opened in 1969,
yeah.
and then the Verde campus was dedicated in 1975.
Yes.
That's not a long period of time. And for a brand new school,
Yeah.
I think that's pretty phenomenal that, you know, the powers that be were able to make that happen so that there was a presence in the Verde Valley
Yes.
for the college.
Absolutely. And yet, you know, the feelings, you know, the political town fathers didn't think that was enough. And so it took convincing and work to try to, we did lots of surveys and we did lots of advisory committees and we involved the community. And that was one of our, and of course we had almost no full-time faculty. When I got there, I think they had 3 full-time faculty on, you know, in the Verde. And you know, jillions of part-timers. And they felt that maybe the part-timers were not as qualified. And so that was a course that Jim Williams, my assistant dean at the Verde, and I worked very hard on. And we started to bring in all of the part-time faculty for orientation. And we would have, you know, a full day or 2 days of orientation for them. And we would take them through classes and improvements of instruction. And we did evaluations on every single part-time teacher.
Wow.
And Jim or myself would go out and we would sit through classes and evaluate and then have conferences with the instructor and tell them what we saw and how we could, you know, try to find out how we could help them. And Ginny Chanda was the one that had wanted the computers in the classroom. It took her a long time to get them, but it didn't fall on deaf ears, and you know, you keep going back and back and back again until you finally get it. And so she had one of the first English classes, I believe, that ever used computers. Tom Schumacher is just fantastic in the art area, and I think he interviewed and did a big job because he was a new art teacher, and yet he managed all of the classes, helped us find the part-time teachers, evaluated the part-time teachers with us, and told us whether we should hire them in what classes. And I think, and I've had remarks and comments from many of the part-timers saying that they really felt a part of the Verde, and that brought them in. And I think that's how I built the community and support and the instructor support, because we were a very close group over there. And when I moved over in '78, we hired Phil Tatum, we hired Dieter Bartels, Ginny Chanda, Dee Barber, and we started in all of these areas, and then we took over the old Clarkdale High School, and we used that building for a long time until we got our new facilities. And so each time, when we moved into the Clarkdale facility, that was a big deal. And we had an open house and we had all kinds of celebrations. We didn't have a cafeteria, and my mother would be the baker for everything, and she did all of the cook, because there weren't a lot of places to get that, type of service. So Mom would do the refreshments, and we'd have punch and cookies for every fire science meeting and EMT meeting, advisory meetings, and so I kept Mom very busy doing a lot of that. And one of the things, that you had asked about is what were the jobs of the dean. It's amazing. I don't think people understand that when I went over there was no security at the Verde campus. And yet We had money, but not a lot. We had a library that was truthfully no wider than the room that we're in, a little bit longer, okay? It was a very, very small library. And then we added on and made a snack bar in one of the newer, in the new building. We got a snack bar out of that. But we had a safe, and it was just a big safe, but it was on wheels. And we were broken into, and the safe was gone. Well, there were gates locked on the inner court. And somehow they had managed to lift that safe up over the wall and take it, and they finally found it down at the bottom of the river, and of course broken into, and everything was gone. Thank goodness there wasn't really much money, because we'd send it all to Prescott. And but then we got after the horses out of the barn, we added a security system to the Verde, and it was a motion detectors in all of the buildings. The only problem was when the motion detector would go off, I was the one that had to answer them, because I had the responsibility, and my assistant, Jim Williams, very smartly lived in Camp Verde, which is too far away to answer the security alarm. So there were nights when I would get up 4 times a night, because bugs would fly in front of the camera and it would set it off.
Oh my.
And so it was, and I couldn't have done it now because there's too much traffic, but I lived in Verde Village, and it was like 4 miles. But I'd hit my car, and man, I would go screaming down the street, and at that hour in the morning there was no cars. And we did just fine. But now you couldn't do that at all.
Well, fortunately for you, you never had to confront anyone, right? Was it all false alarms?
They were all false alarms. Well, we don't know that they were false alarms, but they had tried a couple of times, and you could see where they had tried, but it set it off because they got in, and but they were gone by the time we got there. And I would go in because I was so used to having it with the false alarms, and the police chief would say, "Mrs. Bamrick, you cannot go in. You stay in your car until we get here," because they were so slow sometimes, and I'd beat the police there. And but fortunately, I never had to face anybody. So
good. I'm glad for that.
So, but so many things, and then the meetings in Prescott. I think we had more meetings in Prescott and that was before we had the two-way video between the campuses, and driving back and forth, and that was a hard part, because I had to be at a lot of, I was on the cabinet, and naturally couldn't miss those meetings, and then there would be other meetings that were called, and so I was juggling my time between travel time and the miles I wore out. I don't know how many cars, and then the last 2 years that I was at the Verde, Dr. Walker gave me all of Coconino County, and so I had everything from the Verde Valley all the way up to Kanab, Utah, was my territory.
Wow.
And so I would fly a lot in the small planes, and we would land in Tuba City, and you would land after dark if we got a late start, and they have no airport, so they have just a dirt strip, and no lights, and so cars would drive down the strip, and we'd follow the car to land on the strip.
Oh, man.
And one time when we went to Baghdad, I was taking rebar over for the welding class in the plane. and we got over Baghdad and tried to land there, and we had some problems, and so we had to go around, and we finally had to just go ahead and chance it and try and set it down, and we had a great pilot, and he set it down. We made that one. That was a close call. And in the Grand Canyon, we went to the bottom of the Grand Canyon to deliver some stuff down at the yeah, we flew to the bottom.
Was it in a helicopter or
yeah,
a plane?
In a plane.
Wow.
And we weren't trying to go to the bottom. But we were flying over the bottom and trying to climb up above because there was storms. And I could see walls on both sides, and I think, oh my gosh, I wonder if we're going to get out of here. And I'd say, I don't think it's going to clear up there, do you? And he said, no, he said, I think we better try and rise above it. So he'd go up higher, and oh, that was a horrible, that one scared me. That was the worst that I've ever really been scared. But that one did, I thought I'd had it that time. So it was, but it was a love of, I felt that everything that I was doing was important. And maybe people tell me I'm too detail-oriented, but those classes, when they need that stuff, I was the one they depended on to get it there, and so I would get it there. And go up for all of the registrations, and on the reservations, when we'd have daylight savings time, that was always messed up because they wouldn't come until an hour before or an hour later, and so then that threw all of the flight plans out the window. Mm-hmm. I can remember Lyle Minkler sitting on the end of a suitcase out of Kayenta waiting for a pickup. And it was dark, and so we had to do the car lights for the landing things to pick Lyle up so we could get him out of there. And one night we couldn't get him, and so he had to stay with some friendly Indians on the reservation. We had all kinds of great adventures.
Sounds like it. I mean, I'm just picturing, all the things you did, traveling to and from the Verde to the Prescott for meetings, flying all over northern Arizona, getting up in the middle of the night, answering, the security alarm, transporting rebar and other materials. I mean, you must have had an incredible passion for your job. I did.
It was next to my family. That was my life. Mm-hmm. And the one time we had a big storm, we were putting in the first building, the library building, which was a double quadruple modular building, and we had a horrible rainstorm. And it comes down off of Mingus. We were at the foothills there. Mm-hmm. And the water was coming down, and Fred, the night janitor, called me. It was on a weekend, some kind of a holiday, and everybody had left town. And Fred called me, and he said, Marianne, he said, I think you better come out here. He said, I'm afraid we're going to lose the building. They had it up on pylons, in the thing, but it wasn't formed in. And so I went out, and the stream was just, the water was just flowing. I said, okay. And so we decided what we needed to do was to divert, the flow of water. So we got shovels, and Fred and I started shoveling. But it was so wet out there. I had tennies on, and I got down. There's some tennis shoes at the bottom of that library. And so when the archaeologists...
They're yours.
They're mine.
I'm going to make a note of that for archives.
No kidding. My tennis shoes are down at the bottom, and I lost them, and we kept working, and we finally got it, and we got the thing to turn so that it didn't flow in, and we saved the library building that time.
Wow.
So...
Wild and woolly times.
Oh, yeah, it really was. It was like the pioneer days. But and every little inch of progress that we made was huge to us, and we really appreciated it, and I loved doing it. I really did, and all of it, with the students, and the students were tremendous. I still hear from a lot of the students on the Verde, and it was good to me, and I really enjoyed the educational portion of it.
Did you feel like, being the dean there, that you had the liberty to push things forward? Or did you feel like you had to wait for the okay from the Prescott campus to do the things that you wanted to do?
A lot of things I could do. But when it involved money, we had to work within our budgets. Mm-hmm. And so it was, how hard could I push? How hard could I convince them? Were my stories, were my needs expressed to them, and did they hold up in comparison? Because a lot of the faculty, they would say, oh, well, Prescott gets everything, we don't get anything. Mm-hmm. Well, it looks like that. But Prescott was serving a much bigger area, too. But I have to say that I think that the original board were cognizant and supportive of the Verde, but not to the extent of equalization. Mm-hmm. And I think that it could have moved probably faster than it did. But I'm also one, I'm not afraid of a good, battle over things, but I also realize that I saw the big picture. And I think that's what, when you're in administration, I was the first woman administrator,
I wanted to ask you about
that. And so and that started way back, Mollie, when I left. I was division chair after John Myers left, and I applied for the job, and Dr. Russo didn't think that I was quite ready for that, and God love Joe, so I finally wrote him a memo, and I still have it, and it says, "Dear Joe, you have said that my performance is excellent, that my teaching is good, and that you have no problems in evaluating me and saying I'm doing my job. If the only thing that's bothering you is that I am a female," I said, "think of me as Mac, and think of me as a man, and call me Mac, and then maybe we can get along." Uh-huh. And so I got the division chair, and
for you.
And so I was in that job for a couple of years, and then Don Heisero asked me if I would move up and work as the director of. Remember John? I don't know if you remember. John Duran was his. He moved down from science and moved into the assistant or director, because Don was the dean of continuing ed, and John was the assistant. And when John left, I moved into his spot. So then I serviced all of flying into Fredonia and all over the place, and served clear down to Black Canyon City, all of the areas that were within Yavapai County, Yarnell Hill. We serviced Baghdad everywhere, and that was fun. But
so was that the dean of continuing ed?
No, that was the director of continuing ed, and I worked for Don Heisero. Mm-hmm. But I only did that for a year, and that's when the flights to Grand Canyon and Tuba City and a lot of it took place.
So how did you make the transition over to the Verde campus then?
during that next year, it was in the mid-year, Dr. Russo came to me and asked me if I would be interested in going to the Verde Valley. And there was some changes with Dr. Hyam, and Dr. Hyam left that position, and Dr. Russo asked me if I would move over. That he and the board had talked about it and would like to know if I would do that. Mm-hmm. And I said yes, I would. I said I'd like to go and see if I can do anything in the Verde. So
were you the first dean there?
No, Del Hyam was.
Oh, okay.
Dr. Hyam was the first dean. And he was there I moved there in 78, so he was there a couple years before that. And then when he left, and then I was at the Verde from 78 on until I came back over here that last year and filled in as interim president in place of Dr. Walker. Mm-hmm. I was all ready to retire. They had my retirement party at the Verde and celebrated my leaving. And
she's coming back.
And they said, we can't get rid of you no matter what. So, no.
Well, that's great. Of all the positions that you've held at Yavapai, faculty, dean, interim president, what accomplishments bring you the most pride?
I think the dean at the Verde. Mm-hmm. It was such a variety. There were so many things, and yet I was happy to do it. That I just hold a lot of pride and can look at that and say, I can remember what it was like when I first came over here, and a lot of people didn't even know about Yavapai College. And yet we had, I think, a real great reputation when I left. And
you were there, say, from 78 to 92, was it?
Yeah.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
That campus grew a lot.
It grew a lot. Yes, it did. Had the first permanent buildings up there, and we were so pleased with them. We got a handball court because that was one of the things that it didn't cost very much money, but it was important to the community, and the community loved the handball court. And that was a small thing, but boy, they were proud of that, Mm-hmm. So it's all in the receiver's eyes, I think. And but that gave me the most pride because we had no full-time students when I went over there. And we had graduating students that graduated from the Verde campus and had our own graduation.
When that happened?
And that was wonderful. And we had a couple of those before I left, and had full-time students and taking academic curriculum that had gone through the academics. We had a lot of them that went through with the BS, with the vocational areas, and lots of career education courses that EMTs and the nursing program. The first nursing program that we set up on the Verde was, with the telecommunications and being able to set it up, because there was no way we could afford, that the college could afford, to have another full-time nurse on the Verde campus for so few students. Mm-hmm. And yet there were plenty of students for a class, 12, 15, but not enough to make it pay. We had Marcus J. Lawrence Hospital at that time, and they were definitely willing to work with us. And so when we worked with all of that out and was able to bring that, and we also had a time, and I know some of my friends in academia didn't like the cosmetology program, but that was another vocational program that was very, very successful in the Verde. We had a cosmetology school, and the students did their work at the beauty school, and their teachers, we interviewed them, and they had to apply, and they had to meet our qualifications. They came to our orientation, and so they were part-time teachers, and so we were able to work it so that the student could sign up for college credit and get their license. And it was a marvelous program. It was going very, very well. And then we had some beauty schools in the Prescott area that wanted to do the same thing, but they didn't have the dedication and the determination and the support that they were willing to give to it like we had it over there. And so the board said, that's it, and they cut the program out.
I wasn't even aware of that program.
Yeah.
Were there any other programs that the Verde campus had that Prescott campus didn't have?
Well, we started the weekend college over on the Verde, where we had did a lot of the. And Jim Williams was really a very progressive and forward-thinking type of person, and his whole philosophy and mine, that's why we work well together, is that we need we're here to serve students. And if students don't want to go to class and they can't come to class at 9 o'clock on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, then why don't we offer it at a different time, in a different package, in a different time slot? Why don't we offer it over the with the telecommunications? And so we did a lot of the flex scheduling. We had the Saturday college, we had the kids college, the first kids college in the summertime over there. And he had just a lot of programs, and then he would do weekends. We do the whole program would be offered on Saturdays and Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday. And they could go through the semester in a very short period of time because they were going longer hours, but dedicating just to one subject that they would do it, and it was very successful. And that's how we built a lot of our footsie that way. Was meeting the needs of the students. And then the EMT programs and the fire science programs. We did, the police science. We did very well with those programs. So.
You had mentioned a couple times the telecommunications.
Yes.
Now, that evolved over time, didn't it?
Yes.
Do you remember how it started and
when we first
the transition?
When we first started, it was, I believe it was a grant. And we had, we said that if we could televise the program, the lecture portions with the full-time nurses over here to the Verde campus, and we used our science lab at the time because we were still in the 4 little buildings. And the science and chemistry lab was our nursing and our telecom room. And they set up the televisions over there. They had a camera, and there was a person in the room, that would shoot around to the students. And if the student in the Verde, and they would see the one over here, and the instructor could call on the Verde student if they had their hand up to ask a question, and they would talk back and forth. But it wasn't nearly sophisticated like it is now. And but it worked, and they were so happy to have it, to be able to get into having a nursing program. And then we had the nurses from the hospital that were also nursing instructors that could do the clinical and that portion of it for us. And so that's how we were able to manage that. So it was, and that was a first. So we did a lot with that.
That's great. You talked a little bit about being the interim president.
Oh,
Now,
yeah.
I know you were asked if you would fill in, or I'm not exactly sure how
Yeah.
all that came about, that it was definitely a very tumultuous time in the college's history.
Might say so.
Well, maybe you could tell us how you came to be the interim president, and then how you perceived your role in that position.
That's a tough one, Molly. As I said, I was retiring, and they had already had my retirement party, and but as things were getting rather upset throughout the whole system, it didn't affect just the Prescott campus. It also affected the Verde campus, and I was approached by administration and mainly a board member, and talked with board, a board member too. No, it was at a board meeting that I had talked, and Dr. Russo again came to me and said, no, it wasn't Dr. Russo. He was already gone then. It all gets mixed up. I'm not sure. At any rate, I was contacted and taken in, went in and talked with the board of governors, and they asked me if I thought that if I would be willing to extend my retirement, because they needed time to do a search, and that if it worked out that I could be president. I said I have no desire to be president permanently. I said, but I have worked too long and too hard at this institution to see it go on the way it is. And I said, I will do it until you have a search committee and you can select a new president. And that was, I didn't know what I was doing. It was a very tumultuous year, because I thought, and my one charge from the board at that time, when they asked me if I would do that, I asked them, what are you expecting of me? And they said, we want you to bring peace on the campus. We want you to build morale, and to make things calm again, and get us back on track. And I said, well, I will do the best, because we had a Fisher report that had been written with all kinds of recommendations, and they asked me to utilize the Fisher report in the way that I did the job of the interim president. And one of them was Fisher was really quite outspoken, and said that that we needed to all settle down and take a look at what our roles were, faculty included, and that the political faculty, that the faculty were not supposed to be the political party of the Yavapai College. So that's the job that I personally took as a challenge.
That's a pretty big challenge.
And what I worked, I can't tell you how many hours, and it was all worth it, except that I worked with faculty and I was working with the lawyers, because everything that we did in the way of reorganizing that type of thing had to be approved by the lawyers. I was working with the lawyers for North Central, with lawyers for the state board, with lawyers for you name it. And I was working more with lawyers than I was with faculty and students. And I really didn't care for that. Mm-hmm. But it had to be done. That part had to be straightened out first. Mm-hmm. We got off the probation with a number of the committees with State Board, and we got reinstated with all of the rest of it, and then started in on our strategic plan and the faculty constitution and all of that. Mm-hmm. And I worked with a group of faculty, and then I would take it to the lawyers, and the lawyers would look at it, and I would, try to interpret there and bring it back and forth so that it could be a give and take. And we finally came out, and the faculty had agreed with the thing that I came out with the report that I came out with in the strategic plan, and it's also the one that the administration and the board would accept. Mm-hmm. It was all done, and when I left, had a big bow on it, and it was never used. It was chucked in the drawer, and it was never used. And wow. That hurt.
I can imagine.
That hurt. Because I felt that the faculty had a feeling that I'd let them down, and I didn't. But that was something else. And so the last year was not the happiest year.
Well, that's unfortunate that
yeah.
You had to end your career with college on that sort of note.
And then I ended up with diabetes and cancer, and went downhill from there. So.
Oh, wow.
But
well, I remember you during that year, and I remember going to a meeting, and you told the group that the board had charged you to begin the healing process.
Absolutely.
And I just appreciated hearing you say that so much. I mean, knowing your own personal character as well as I could know up to that point, mm-hmm. and then to hear you say that was just very comforting and reassuring to me.
Well,
so
I'm glad to hear that, Mollie, because I really never knew, and yet I tried. And the rest of the story. Remember when I started that meeting? It was on a Friday afternoon, and they said they never got a chance to ask questions, and I had and I said, oh, okay, we'll meet upstairs in the over the library in that one of the rooms, and we had and the rest of the story now. You ask your questions, and I'll answer them, and that worked. But I mean, I was trying to communicate with them, and also to be fair to people that had been here and had a different viewpoint, because they didn't like the way things were being done. But that was over, and we needed to meld together and come back. And I felt that there was common ground, and that it could work like it seems to be working now. Mm-hmm. And I congratulate the president on that.
Yeah. We've had more turmoil since you left, but
right.
I think things are on a very good footing,
yes.
At least from my perspective.
Right.
And from what I hear from other people.
Yes, and I everything that I've heard, I haven't met him, but everything that I've heard is that he is really the right person for Yavapai College, mm-hmm. and I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And I certainly wish him well, because it's a good institution.
I think so.
And you talk about blood, sweat, and tears. I've done it.
Yeah. God, you've had a great career here. You've done so many things that I know there's a lot of things that I've probably missed and have not asked you. Is there anything else that you just want to talk about that I didn't bring up or you want to elaborate on?
I think that I've bounced back and forth and maybe have not kept a good flow with it, but it just all kind of pops into your mind in different areas, and you just go with the flow. And I really appreciate the fact that I still hear from a lot of students, and students that I had when I taught in the even in the basement of the Methodist Church, and
wow.
yeah, and saying, and because I was involved in the dress code too, and back when Dr. Barnes was here, and we were sued by the students, to and I was on Dr. Barnes' side on that one, and I got up on the stand, but I graduated from ASU and in the College of Business at that time. Now that tells you how far back we're going. At that time, women could not wear pants to class. We had to wear skirts, dresses, and we had to be professionally dressed. And that was, we were going out to the business world, and that we had to be appropriately attired. And so I believed in that, and I believed in that all my life. And so I disagreed with them, and I told them so. And but boy, have we come a long way since then.
Oh yeah.
And but I still think that it's important, and I think that clothes certainly don't make the person, but after all, if you want to project an image, any type of a professional image, I think that there is a difference. And not that you're any less if you're in a pair of Levi's and a t-shirt, but it's just something that I believe in. So that was way back when. And I still taught, and the students have one that I had particularly, disagreed with on that thing, and we had many discussions on it, has said, it does make a difference. You were right. And not that I abide by it, not that she abided by it all the time, but she said, it does make a difference. As far as promotions, as far as climbing the ladders, as far as doing anything, she felt that it did. So, and that's, that's your philosophy. You're born with it, so that's...
I know in my own life, I've always taken a cue from my supervisor. However the library director dressed, I felt I need to follow suit. And of course, for years I had Charlotte Brennan as the library director, and she always dressed professionally, and so I thought, okay, I better follow along in line here. And
I think that it makes a difference. I really do. And but the things that I've gained from the students, and when I think about the hours of counseling with students, with abuses and pregnancies and bad marriages and beatings, and I was mother confessor to a lot of students, and but it was important, and those are the students that I still hear from, that when I was division chair and in teaching in the business area, that's where I had more contact with the students. And that's really what I missed in administration. But I liked administration because it was full of variety, and I never knew what was going to go on in a day. And I just regretted the fact that I didn't have enough time in a day, enough hours in the day to do all that I was supposed to do. And I can remember lugging books home and my briefcase full of stuff and working, and I don't know whether now it made all that difference or not, but at the time I thought that it did, so I gave it my best shot.
Well, it certainly sounds like you did.
So-
All the extra effort that you put in. You know,
Well,
getting classes going here on the Prescott campus at the beginning, and
oh, that was
building
fun.
the Verde campus up,
Yeah,
the way that it grew under your leadership.
it was fun. It was really very rewarding. And I can look back and say, you know, what have I done with my life? I've done a lot of things.
Mhm.
And yet it's all been very good to me. I can't except the last year, and that's what kind of hurts is the fact that the last year wasn't the happiest year of my life, but with the college.
Well, if
But-
it's of any help to you, your presence in that position at that time meant a lot to me personally.
Well, thank you,
So-
Molly. It's
I want to thank you for that.
Oh, well, you
I want to
appreciate
thank you for all the work that you did for so many years to build the college up the way that you did. And I want to thank you for coming in today to
Oh,
talk with me
it's great.
and let me capture your memories on tape. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you so much, Molly. It was
You're
great.
welcome.
Thank you.